Tonight, we are joined by Jon Smucker, partner and portfolio manager at Marietta, a boutique employee-owned investment firm with more than 25 years of helping clients grow and protect their wealth. What began as an internal AI tool to improve investment research has grown into Sherlock AI, a platform designed to help investment professionals quickly surface accurate insights from complex financial data. In this episode, we'll explore Jon's journey from investor to founder, the pivotal decisions and entrepreneurial leaps that brought Sherlock AI to life, and how AI is reshaping the future of investment research. Jon, welcome to Fractional Frequency.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much. So I would love to get into the origin story of Sherlock AI. So building it, for internal needs at Marietta, because if it doesn't exist, I should build it.
Right. Well, I guess it was a little over 3 years ago when the first ChatGPT was released to the wild, to the public, and people started playing around with it. And I had actually a business school friend of mine come into town, and I took him out to dinner, and he said, "Oh my gosh, are you using this thing?" And I was like, I've kind of heard about it. I don't even know. Like, I Googled it a little. Looked like a bunch of scammy things were out there. I don't know how to use it. And so he's like, "Oh my gosh, Jon." He's like, "Go, here's the website. Here, like, sign up, use it for a week, and then tell me that you don't think it's going to change the world." And so I did. Thank you so mil. And I used it, and immediately, it's just like it's doing stuff for you, little tasks, things like that, writing an email, things like that. So I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." And I'm sure it's 100% accurate all the time, and I'm going to use it for for all this stuff. And then, then you play around with it for 15 minutes, and it starts just messing up left and right, right? So I think I was like, wow, well, it like, let me learn more about it. So I dove into like the research papers that they were writing about, like, all of the math behind it, all of the things behind it, how they built it. And I was like, this should work. For deeper research, and I really wanted to use it for my work. For my work is very heavy in researching individual companies. We invested essentially like stocks and bonds, so municipal corporate bonds, and then the stock market, but individual stocks, not mutual funds. So we dive really deep into research on individual companies, and that just takes a lot of time. And I have, as part of a boutique firm, and I'm a partner there, so we're on top of portfolio management. We're doing the investment research. We're doing the client servicing. We're doing client communications, relationship management, and, marketing and all that stuff when we have enough time, which is never, right? So I'm always kind of looking for an efficiency. I'm rambling a little bit here, but basically I was like, okay, this should work for investment research. It doesn't, unlike the open large language models. So if this is brand new, no one's done it yet. Maybe I can build it for myself and figure out how to do that. I do not have a tech background. I am not savvy. I've never done software before, so I just needed to find people. So I went into a coffee shop one day, and there was a guy he's like a guy in Milwaukee that knows everyone. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, Ian." I was like, "Hey, do you know, I'm doing this thing," and I actually had like the OpenAI like papers in front of me and he was like, "That's over my head, but I do know a few people doing like AI in Milwaukee, and he listed a few people, and then he like looked across the room and he's like, "And actually that guy," and pointed at him across in the
Oh,
coffee shop with me. And I was just like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Yeah, he runs like this funny company. I think his name's Michael." And I was like, "Okay." And I just marched right up to Michael, my now business partner. I explained to him what I was doing, and he was like, "Hey, come over tonight, and we'll talk about it." So I went over to his house. He was like, "Hey, a lot of people come. He's done software before. He did some crypto things. He's is on the board of Marquette University here in Milwaukee too. So he's pretty well connected, and he's done some startups before. So he had that sort of experience and that whole side of things. But he said people come to me all the time with these ideas. I usually just say, help them, connect them or whatever. But I really want to do this. I think it's a cool idea, and I want to do it with you. So the rest was history. So then we started trying to build the MVP and go from there. But yeah, totally serendipitous. I mean, but it was really just like getting off your seat and going to talk to someone that actually two different people in the same coffee shop that led me to the right direction.
I mean, honestly, this reminds me of a proposal story that you could put on your website that is saying like how we met.
Oh yeah, I feel like people love that. Yeah.
It is. It's very serendipitous, like you just said, right? Like you're in a coffee shop and you just happen to be there and your worlds collide. It's very cool. So now that you're on your way to the founder journey, what about the journey has surprised you or felt different from what you expected?
Well, it's my first startup, so everything is new. I think maybe what I wasn't expecting was like the highs are so high when you make a breakthrough or you get like the result that you've been like grinding away at. It is like no other feeling I've ever felt. It's incredible, like the adrenaline you get, like it's amazing. The lows are so low when it totally misses or you're miscommunicating with the software team or they're just like we can't like this can't be done or whatever it is and like this whole project is a waste of time, a waste of money. It's not going to work and everything. Like it's the highs and the lows definitely are pretty insane.
That's relatable. I feel like previously you're constantly on the go or constantly going from meeting to meeting. But I think when you're in the position now that we are, it's slower. So then when you feel something, you really feel it because you don't have the next thing to really occupy you, right? So yeah, I resonate
Yeah,
with that.
yeah. There's always more to do and build and everything, but it is very much. I mean, we're a really small team, so we're picking our spots, and when one of those spots doesn't work, oh my gosh, it's just like a disaster. But then you keep pushing, and you get a breakthrough, and like it's the best thing that happened to you all year. So
Yeah.
So, John, asking for a friend, how do you try to mitigate like going too low, right? Because I think this is, like Jenna said, something that resonates. Sometimes when you start to get too low, you can go down to a dark place and it can be hard to pick yourself back up. So, any like thoughts or tips on how you manage that in yourself?
I mean, staying busy and keep talking to people. I think there's been a few times where I was like, this is just crap. It's never going to be good. And then I had to schedule like someone to see it, a friend or acquaintance, and then they see it and they're like, "Whoa, this is really impressive." Yeah, it is. We're building something cool. Like maybe this, maybe I'm disappointed. It's never going to be good enough for me. I know it won't. Is Yeah, I think just keep talking to people and fresh eyes are always good too, especially in software. It's like someone that hasn't seen it, they're like, "Whoa, what you're doing here is I can't believe you pulling this off," and then it is uplifting.
Yeah, it's a kind of a reminder. And that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of founders are absolutely their own worst critic. And so their lens is so much more detailed, and the expectations they have for themselves and for their team are maybe so high that anybody else is still impressed, even with the warts as you're kind of working through it. That's great advice. No, sorry, Jenna. I know you've got some more questions. I just had to jump in there because it sounds so familiar.
No, and something you didn't say, but what I think, I mean, how I'm interpreting it is that like one conversation or one bad thing shouldn't basically ruin the day or make you think that what you are trying to build is like wrong, right? It's like, okay, that was one person. So it's like on to the next, right? So being able to just remember like what you are doing, and at the end of the day, like no one can please everyone, right? So you just keep pushing what you're wanting to do. I know you didn't say that, but that's what I was interpreting.
I mean, yeah, definitely keep pushing. Like rejection's part of it, but
Yeah.
it is yeah, that like the rejection lows aren't quite as low. I always get a little miffed. This could really be helping them,
I
but
don't
then
know.
it's yeah, for me it was more on like the development side when it was just like something just wasn't happening correctly or whatever, or just blow past a deadline and you're way late on something and you're just like we're never going to get this done. That kind of stuff really that's where I think I hit the lower points.
Well, in terms of your, let's say funding philosophy, are you funded or bootstrap?
We're bootstrapped, and
Okay.
this was a decision with me and my business partner. And I don't feel super strongly one way or the other, though. I know you said this is maybe a hot topic and people dig in on it, but like, I mean, I think for me, like bootstrapping is nice. Like that we can go at our own pace, but that's a double-edged sword, right? Where it would probably be going a lot faster if we had funders and board members and things like that. We can really build it the way that we want, because at the end of the day, I'm building a tool for me to use for myself, for my work. So that's where I'm the expert that I'm building it for. So if we had a lot of other people involved or other investors, they'd be like, oh, well, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And like some of that, like maybe that would be good advice. But if it's like, this allowed us to be very focused, I think. And so now I've built a really cool tool. I'm just trying to find other people like me, portfolio managers that are invested in individual stocks and looking, especially if they have like a small research team, small analyst team, or maybe no analyst team, that type of person really built a great tool very specifically aimed at them. So I think, would I love a direct sales team? Yeah. Do I have one? No, we're bootstrapped, so I think that's where the trade-offs come.
Would you say that you knew that right away, or was it something that evolved into that opinion?
Definitely evolved. I think that's out of experience for sure. And, I I'm not, I'm also not good at like pitching the product because I never had to pitch to investors. I just made I just think there are definitely trade-offs. We're in a situation here where we've been able to pull off like building a very focused, very useful product that I used every day. So, which is awesome. So we're kind of gearing up for that next step now, and I'm kind of realizing that we don't have that personnel staffing to do this direct outreach that we need, where we certainly would if we had gone the investment route. But I don't know if we would have built like this specific of a tool kind of on our own timeline. I think that would have been a lot more stressful.
So do you think it plays, if you were to have, let's say, the funding route, would it, I guess you kind of said this, but would it impact the speed and the way at which you'd wanted it to go? Or would it, just given the, intensity, but also speed at which AI is constantly evolving too?
Yeah, given that, I mean, you'll never know, but my guess would be it would have happened a lot faster and maybe the tool would not have been as good. And I can say that because as a portfolio manager, I get pitched AI tools all the time that are supposed to help us do research. I've yet to find one that I can't find a mistake in within the first 5 minutes of using it. And so there's a lot of like highly priced stuff out there that's just AI slop. And I'm sure it's because they raised hundreds of millions of dollars and they need to like get something out there and get some people paying for it. And they're just throwing stuff at the wall. And that to me would be, that's not how we built it. I don't know if that would have been the way I wanted to go at first.
Yeah.
So let's pick your brain about that, if you don't mind, Jon. You mentioned a ton of other tools coming to market. I think this is sort of like the beauty and also the risk of AI being so accessible. It is so, the barriers to entry for entrepreneurs to build something without a lot of information or domain knowledge or engineering expertise is lower than it's ever been. So you've got all of this noise around you. Explain to us what makes your tool different, what makes the accuracy and the impact and value so different from all these others.
We built an AI tool, but we hate AI. So our development team does not use it. It is forbidden to use on the development side at all. So it's all done with old school, I guess now, like humans punching in code. And there's several reasons for that. One is just safety, sloppiness. I'm not a coder. I don't know all of the things there. There's a lot of very good reasons to have it be that way. I think also the most important thing for me in doing investment research is the accuracy. And every tool I've seen just like quickly falls apart. I think there's a lot of reasons why. One is just if you're using like a general language model, it's meant to answer general questions, and you really like you can get specific. That's like back to when I was reading the research papers, I was like, this should work. But I think when you have all these different inputs all over the place and you have people prompting different prompts and you're trying to accommodate for all of that, it becomes really difficult, right? The number of potential answers is just like infinite instead of what are the EBITDA margins over the last 5 years? Like that's a very specific question, right? So I think what we did with Sherlock is we took out prompting. So we just have buttons and you click in buttons and then so you get the same answer every single time. We've also mapped every single variable that when you click a question, it knows exactly what data it needs to answer that. And then we've like mapped to that very specific data, pulling the correct data and then having context around the variables that it's talking about. So like just really guiding the LLM to be so very, very specific. And I think that's where we're getting just better outputs than you could ever do with a general language model. Even if you write a 10-page prompt in Claude or whatever, honestly, like they've gotten a lot better in the last 3 years. I'll be the first to admit that. Still not perfect, and you kind of need perfect in the industry I'm in. So that's a little bit of how we're getting there. It's like it is truly like mapping behind the scenes, and then just taking away the prompting. I think does a ton to get like that specific information that you need.
That it sounds really familiar and makes a lot of sense. And I've spent my whole career in finance and fintech. And so that's probably partly why I've been around people who are making all of these decisions on behalf of customers. There's a lot of gravity to that. But maybe for the benefit of listeners who have not been in those environments, tell us a little bit about what's at stake if a portfolio manager or an investment advisor is making decisions with incomplete or inaccurate information. What could that mean for their end customers?
I mean, it'll cost you money. It could potentially cost you money, right? If you're making decisions based on inaccurate information, and you can't go after Claude, like you were the one being lazy using, using the LLMs or whatever. So I mean, or maybe not lazy, just trying to be efficient, right? With your time and resources. But if you're not careful enough doing that, it can cost real dollars. We're in the trust business with our clients, and when you do something like that because you're taking a shortcut, you lose credibility with your client, and you're very likely not going to be a client for very long, much longer. So I think that's what's at stake. Even if you're like an analyst and you're pitching to just a portfolio manager, and they're ultimately going to make the decisions for the client, and you have some of these inaccuracies that come through just because you're trying to do stuff really quickly or whatever. I mean, that hopefully there's a catch it, there's some feedback that you can catch it. But if not, like that can cost you credibility with your investment team, and then ultimately it's hard to recover from that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so you mentioned that, your target audience is really busy. They've got a lot going on. And I'm not surprised. I'm actually reminded one of the first groups that I supported in my career was an investment management group. And there was a portfolio manager. And I could not get a hold of that guy to save my life. And I actually, at one point, I was trying to hire for him. He had this open position, and he wouldn't respond to my emails or my outreach on Instant Messenger. I went and sat at his desk and worked from his desk until he got back and said, I need you to give me feedback on these candidates so that we can move this forward. And so I think you're just pulled in a number of different directions. It's been a role where there's a lot of plates spinning, and it's been that way for a long time. With the entry of tools like Sherlock AI, the ones that actually work and add value, how do you think the role of a portfolio manager or an investment advisor changes? What does that look like in the future?
Well, first of all, I knew you were tenacious. That was well done. Just sitting at his desk and just waiting. I love that. That's a great move. It's really hard to say. I think portfolio managers on one hand can do even more, right? So I can be even more informed. With Sherlock, I have 5,000 stock write-ups at the click of a button right now. So it's just like click, boom, like here it is. So I can do more than that. I don't have to, wait for a research analyst or something or an investment team meeting to like cover it. So I have that at my fingertips. But with that, I think, and a lot of these tools, they stop exercising parts of your brain that are very important to exercise. So I think the best portfolio managers, the best investment firms have a disciplined process, and they follow that process. We're always looking for technology to kind of improve and make that more efficient. We're not trying to take away from the magic or the art or whatever it is, those muscles in your brain that make the process meaty and work. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I think more and more tools are going to come out and make it more efficient. And I think you just have to be very intentional with the tools that you're using to make sure it's not just hitting a pain point for you, but also hitting one that isn't essential to replacing an essential like brain function.
I like the way that you describe that. I think, as I consider even parts of my day to day where, it feels like you're challenged always about should you be spending your time doing this manually or should you be leveraging some sort of a tool to get it done for you? And there's almost kind of like an internal tug of like, actually, no, that like there are certain things where there's a little bit more imagination or magic that happens that I don't know if it can be replaced, at least not today.
Yeah, and I'd say going down a little bit of a rabbit hole, I think my biggest concern with AI and everything is not replacing jobs or anything like that, but we live in a time that we skilled up and became experts in our own fields without AI. So we know what we're talking about. So when this AI slop comes back, we're like, no, that's wrong, and we can fight with it. I worry that if you're growing up and you're just like, okay, just take it for what it is and then move on, that's a very like low conflict, faster way of doing things, but it's worse. So and I think that's where like at what point do you lose like the pushback? And I think they've done some studies already. I forget what profession it was. I'll just throw doctors under the bus. But basically they said like doctors plus AI did have slightly better like diagnosis outcomes, but then when they took the AI away, the doctors had a way worse rate of success rate or accuracy rate than they did before the AI, right? So I think it does become a crutch. We start to lean on it a lot, and I think that's what I think worries me a little bit more than the other stuff.
Yeah. I could
Yeah.
probably get lost in a whole conversation about this. We just welcomed a little pack of high school aged interns who are going to support some kind of things that we have going on in the background, some social work and things like that. And I have to say, in my first interaction with them, the impact of just the world that they've grown up in, think about like the pandemic era high school experience, plus all of the entry of AI, it makes for a very different 18-year-old than I have ever seen before. And I think there are certainly some things to consider there for the world at large.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 2-year-old at home, and she will not know. She won't know a world without
Yeah.
AI of some sort.
Yeah, it's wild.
I remember before the internet.
Yes, yeah, like going to the library and having I am not old enough to have like had to, go through the encyclopedia at the college level, but I remember there was like this closed system research database. You didn't
Yeah.
just go on the internet. Like you had to go to the library and like use some sort of a login key and get into the information. So
Yeah,
it's changed
JSTOR.
so much. Yeah. Yes. Well, John, we usually end with one piece of quick hit advice. And so I would love to ask you, as you consider founders in finance or financial services who are building products that are either AI centered or that leverage AI, what would you ask for them to consider?
Can we just stop trying to repackage Chat GPT and Chat GPTs? And can we come up with like I think like the tools are so cool that like the capabilities are really awesome. I would say that like we don't need another thing where I can a sandbox where I can type in any prompt. Like we already have that. I'd say the one thing is like do not forget about how important customer privacy is in the financial sector. If our client data gets out there, we again like we don't have a client. It's a trust business, right? Remember the business that you're in is a trust business, and so that is one really important one for me. Is the second that an AI tool, because we look at them all the time at Marietta. The second they're like, oh yeah, it'll live in your system and like do blah blah. We're like, nope. you're out. Like, I'm not looking for another vendor to be close to our clients' private information. So I'd say that's, if you're a founder, that has to be top of mind, I would say, to get adoption.
I think really wise words. And so, Jon, if anybody's interested in learning more about you or Sherlock AI, where can people find you?
Find me on LinkedIn, Jon Smucker, Also, you can, the website is Meet Sherlock, meetsherlock.ai. And if you go on there and you click contact and fill out your info and say you heard me on the podcast, I'd be very happy to give you a demo week and show you around. So it'll be great to meet people.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jon. It's been lovely to chat with you again. Thank you so much for taking some time with us, and I'm sure we'll chat soon.
You as well.
All right. Take care.
All right. Bye.